by doing a lot of those research and getting loads of those qualitative research, we realized there's actually a lot more Bofu keyword. There's actually different ways people are searching for our product. So why not create use cases based on those Bofu terms that are handed to us, you know?
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Hasiotis, and today I'm very happy and excited to be joined by Laetitia Woue. Laetitia is a highly motivated content marketing and organic growth director dedicated to building and growing strong B2B brands, experienced in managing content, PR, SEO, and marketing campaigns for both global brands and startups. She possesses exceptional written and oral communication skills gained through several successful positions in both London and Barcelona. Laetitia, welcome to the SaaS SEO Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, as we do with every guest here at the podcast, my first question would be about you and your background. If you could let us know a few things about your journey so far, and try to help us understand what has brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So basically, again, for some of you, you realize I have a bit of an accent. So I'm French. So it all started off back home. So I grew up in Paris and moved to London to study. So to learn English. So a couple of years. So to learn English, and the plan was to stay there for a couple of years, but fell in love with London and ended up studying and picking up kind of like my all-time passion, which was journalism. So I did a journalism and media degree in London, and the plan was to become a journalist. But as life would have it, it wasn't to be. So I stumbled across a career that I had never heard of, which was public relations. So I did a course on public relation, and this is when I kind of like my love for communication and public relation really kind of arise. And from there, I just was determined to kind of break into the public relation world, and especially agencies, because in London they're very well known for having big PR agencies. So one of my dreams was to go to one of the biggest ones, so Edelman, Ketchum. So I did lots of internship and ended up working in one of my dream agency in Ketchum, and I just worked my way up, work in communication, and essentially worked for major brands, such as a mix of B2B and B2C brands. But I think my sweet spot was from the get-go was always B2B. And so it all started that way. And 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to relocate to Barcelona. So ended up moving to Barcelona and working in the company where I'm currently still working, Red Points. And the journey started as a kind of PR specialist, started off to start the PR efforts, especially. So Red Point is a Barcelona-based company. So the idea was that they wanted to expand, and especially looking at growing in the US. So I came in to help with public relation in the US, and then turns out that I just also now discovered marketing, content marketing, and also fell in love with it. And next thing led to another. I had different opportunities, and one of them was to kind of like step into the marketing world. And I think very much what happened, what was quite interesting when I joined Red Points and working in-house is that I had always worked in PR in agencies. So I had a very much a PR mindset. I always wanted to get coverage for my clients. And my end goal was like, I want to be in the Financial Times. It doesn't matter what like there was no clear measurement metric, but I want to be in the Financial Times. It has X amount of impressions. So this all what I was obsessed about. And then when I entered Red Points, I discovered the word of marketing being attribution, measurement. And from that point on, I realized that, okay, there's something missing in what I do. Like, I want to be able to keep writing content, influencing people, but I want to be able to link that back, to track, to attribute, what I'm doing, to kind of link it back to revenue. And then I stumbled across a book that was called Inbound PR. And this is when they all started. So I actually brought the book with me here. So this is a book called Inbound PR, which was really interesting. And that was talking about this kind of like taking the best of PR, which is, content storytelling, and the best of inbound, kind of combining it together and kind of making sure that all the effort that you would put in PR, you would be able to track them. And then I was introduced to Google Analytics and everything. So, and next thing led to another. I had the opportunity to then join the content team, and then I moved my way up all the way until now.
Many interesting things. First of all, like, I don't know how many people we've interviewed for the podcast that have a background in journalism. So I think that this is a common pattern with content marketeers, having a background in journalism, which is great. The other thing, I don't know how, like, what was your experience working at an agency, but I think that as crazy as it may be at times working at an agency, like having to work with all these different clients, all these different projects and so on, I also find it very valuable for someone who starts their career, their journey, to get this opportunity to do this kind of work for all these different companies and see things from all these different perspectives, let's say.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wouldn't do it any other way. I think it served me well to be working in agencies, because I was juggling between, at sometimes I had like 5 different accounts, and the accounts were, one of them was P&G, and then all of a sudden booking.com, and then another, so it was different industries and it was big account, but I had to learn a lot of skills, which I've been able to apply in my job now. So a lot of transferable skills. So you have to be quick on your feet, like think on your feet. So, going from one topic to another, and depending on the account, you were required to do different things. On an account, maybe we were meant to generate, I remember one of our biggest accounts at the time was Nissan, and it was all around, it was all about EV, electric cars. So all of a sudden I had to put my EV hat and think about writing a press release around the future of cars, and then another minute I would think of P&G and writing about detergent. So it just made me be very agile, and also very, I think I can quite easily jump from a project to another. But one of the downsides that I would see is that what I was missing at the time was I really wanted to dig deep into a specific topic, because I felt like I kind of knew I was, masters of none. So I knew many, many different topics, but I just wanted to have the opportunity to kind of dig deep, which is something that I can do right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now you are at Red Points. For people who have never heard of Red Points, could you please share a couple of things about what the company is and what the company's product does, and who gets the most value out of this product?
Okay, so as I briefly mentioned earlier, so Red Points, we're based out in Barcelona. We have also offices in New York and Salt Lake City, and we are a revenue recovery platform. So what that means is that we've currently worked with over 1,000 brands worldwide, and we help them recover revenue. And the way we do that is, if I put it kind of in plain terms, so right now, the majority of people buy things on e-commerce, online. And what happens with brands? So we are kind of on the side of brands. We're protecting brands. We're a B2B SaaS company. And what we're seeing is a spike and an increase in counterfeits, fake website, impersonation, or piracy. So what many brands face is that when they are kind of selling their products, there's many instances where their intellectual property assets are being stolen by bad actors to pass as them, and the end goal of the bad actors is to mislead consumers into buying their products. So what we can do is that we're protecting a brand's intellectual property, and the way we can do it is sounds complicated, but it's actually quite easy in the sense that when you're a brand, usually when you do your due diligence, so you have your trademark, your copyright, and these are all assets that prove that a brand belongs to you. So when you work with us, a brand is able to provide us with those assets as well as a list of authorized sellers that they're working with. And what we can do is that our platform scroll the internet 24/7 to detect if any bad actors is leveraging one of our customers' assets. So for example, if they created a fake account on Amazon or on Facebook or wherever that be, to sell either counterfeit products or to mislead consumers into providing their personal information. So we do that. Our bread and butter was historically counterfeit, so brand protection. But now what we're seeing as a growing trend is definitely what I mentioned, so fake website and impersonation attacks. So whenever there's instances like this, brands work with us, and we're able to kind of automate the process. It's a process that, if you think about it, it's a process that brand would usually take, if done manually, it would take brands hours to do. So they would need to monitor one by one each website to find infringement, but we're able to automate that process and then send a cease and desist letter to the different platform to make sure that those assets are taken down and that they're not missing out on revenue that's rightfully theirs.
Yeah, that's a whole new world for me, because I guess that this is mostly important for bigger brands, right? I mean, in order for you to get to the level where someone can copy you, or but I don't know, is it for bigger brands only, or would you say that any brand has to be protected?
No, that's a good point. And actually, what we find is that this happens from small brands and bigger brands, and across all different industries. So as long as you have a product, you're selling a product. We've even seen instances of people who had were still at the crowdfunding stage, so they were still trying to push their product out, and their product had been counterfeited at that stage. So this is across a variety of big or smaller brands. But of course, when it comes to the investment that needs to be put into acquiring a solution like ours, it requires a certain budget, and usually it's more kind of accessible to mid-market enterprise companies who have potentially already have an intellectual property department in place, or who are already doing something about the problem. So it really depends, actually.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's get into some more content and SEO specific questions. And my first one would be, let's talk about content strategy. I would like to know what drives your content strategy. Is it purely product driven, or do you go out of the topic sometimes and experiment with keywords, content ideas, and so on and so forth? So I guess my question would be, how do you define content strategy at Red Points, and what drives that strategy?
So our content strategy has evolved a lot. So since I've been kind of in the team, so we've initially, SEO has always been a part of our strategy, but it wasn't always the main pillar of our of our content strategy. So now, as of today, 2022, when you look at our content strategy, so it's mainly based on a content cluster strategy. So we think of content based on different clusters. So early on, we've identified different topics that are very important to our buyer persona. And then the way we work is that we create topic based on those different clusters, have our main, pillar pages, supporting content. So that's something that's very important for us. But of course, alongside meeting the search intent and creating content that satisfies our users, we also have to align with the company as a whole. So whenever all the content that we create, we always weave in some of our product. And if we are planning on launching a new product, as part of our go-to-market strategy, we would always have content as a core part. So we would already be setting the scene by creating content already around the topic. Even if we don't have the product yet, we would already start kind of planting the seeds, creating content about it, and then we can then in retrospect add CTAs or link people to our product pages. But I would say it's SEO. Yes, if I had to quantify it, currently it's 60% SEO, but then we also have those 40%. We also do a lot of thought leadership content. A lot of the thought leadership content that we do, though, we tend to do it on third-party websites. So what we find is that a lot of the our buyer persona, they consume a lot of content from well-known IP publications, and we have a lot of partnership with those IP publications. We also have a partnership with Forbes councils as well. So we have different partnerships, and what we do is that we have in-house experts, and then we create content. So we create tailored content for some of the third-party websites, and obviously that also allows us to get some backlinks. But we also try and make sure that we are positioning ourselves as thought leaders where our buyer persona are consuming content. So whenever I, for example, do interviews or talk to client or customer, I always ask them, what do you read? Where do you get your content from? And a couple of publications keep on popping up. So we always try and having some content out there. So it's not all on our of course, the majority is on our blog. This is where we spend the most of our time, but we also make sure to be where our buyer persona are.
Yeah, that makes sense. In your opinion, what is the balance, let's say, between content that's created, written for SEO, for a search audience, and original content such as data studies, storytelling, contrarian content, and so on?
Yeah. So, in the perfect world, I would love the balance to be, and again, this I think in the case of Red Points, and this would depend on where a company stands, but in the case of Red Points, initially, at first when we started so 4 years ago, when we really started looking at SEO as a main driver for our content strategy. So I would say maybe 3 years ago, 80% was SEO, so keyword research based. But now, as a company, as we're becoming more mature, we continue to write SEO based content, but we also try and strike a balance, because we also want to make sure that we give ourselves some room to create content on topic that maybe currently don't have any search volume, but we know are of interest to our buyer persona. So the balance is still, I would say, 60% SEO and maybe 40% original content. But yeah, we're trying to constantly, what we've been doing historically in the past is a lot of market research, using internal data. We do a lot of, the content team works really closely with the PR team. So initially I was part of the PR team, but now there's a different team. So we work together to do campaigns together. So where, for example, at different time in the year, so around the holiday season, the start of the year, so we would align and think, okay, this is a critical time for our audience. Let's create a market research, let's create original content, and leverage it with the press, but also let's leverage it within our content. So we do a bit of mix, but to be transparent, the majority is still SEO based.
And that's a good thing, because it obviously works well for you. So why not? Even though you touched on that a bit earlier with your answer, I would like to dive a bit deeper into it, and I would like to ask, how important is the product in choosing what to write about? For example, you launched the feature page on NFT protection in May, which I didn't know that this is a thing, actually, that there is a whole I need to protect my NFT project or whatever thing, but apparently there is. And my question here would be regarding content. Does that mean that NFTs will be in your content calendar at some point in the future? I think that right now you have a couple of blog posts about it, but I would like to hear your thoughts on that, even though you kind of touched on that earlier.
Yeah, and NFT is a really good example. So yeah, this is something that we've launched. We've launched in May, and currently we are supporting the launch of this new feature by creating content, supporting content. So definitely, like, content cannot work in silos. So we work really closely with the product team, product marketing, and we need to be aligned with the companies, where the company is going. So product is definitely a core part of also our content strategy. So whenever we'll be launching a product, they would be supporting content. But also, like I said, it's very important that, I would say, maybe a couple of years ago, we would write what came to us, but now we always try and make sure, okay, we have those content cluster. Each content cluster is related to a specific product, and then we're making sure that there's room to weave in the product within all of the content. So I wouldn't say that product dictates the content strategy, but equally the content strategy cannot be done without having in mind our core product. So I would say that right now there's a really good balance whereby, with the mechanism that we've put into place, all the content resolves around what we offer, except for, well, like I said, there's also room for some thought leadership content that sometimes doesn't directly relates to content that we have, but to a pain point that we know our buyer persona is interested in.
That makes perfect sense. I like to shift gears a bit, and I would like to comment on something I really liked on your blog, which is your top level navigation, where people can choose a topic by industry, solution, content type, region, and even platform. Can you speak about the logic behind this structure a bit, which is something that I look at many blogs daily for my work. Is not something that's not something I see very, very often.
Okay, that's interesting. But that, I mean, from the way we came, we decided that structure. So just to take you a bit of few years back. So initially our blog was on HubSpot, and then we decided, I think right during the pandemic, to move our blog so back to our main domain. And so then when we did that, we kind of took a step back and thought, so how do our, because sometimes I think what happened with many brands is you make many assumptions. Sometimes you think your consumers are searching for, your buyer persona searching a certain way, you're making a lot of assumption. But we really took a step back and leveraged qualitative and quantitative data. So we have a lot of data that we get from the forms, especially in our form, where there's a comment section where we ask a lot of questions to whenever someone is submitting a form. So we extract that data, and on a monthly basis, and we always look at that data, this information. We also really work on understanding, going on Google Search Console, understanding how people search. And one of the mechanism, one of the things that we've noticed is that the way people search, there was kind of a bit of a trend. So when people were searching for, or ended up on our website, they would either be looking for searching by problem. So they would say, for example, how to take down a copyright infringement, or how to take down a trademark infringement or patent infringement. So we realized that the problem was usually the way people search. But then from those data, we could see that not only problems, but people would often say where the problem was. So how to take down a copyright infringement on Amazon, on Facebook, they would name the platform. So we realized that over and over, those were the way people would find us. So people would say, leave in the comment form, I'm dealing with copyright infringement on this platform. I'm dealing with this on that platform. So this kept coming up. So we understood that this was a way that the users were expressing some of their concerns. So we thought, why not just in the section making it clear, what type of infringement the blog post will be focused on what platform we're going to be focusing on. And we knew that, country, because depending on the countries, the mechanism changes. So if you're taking down infringement in a specific country, like the region is really important in the way it might affect the way you're taking down infringement. So based on all this collective data, we were able to kind of come up with the menu. And we're finding a lot, we've got Hotjar, so we're seeing that the users are actually using the menu as a way of navigating. So we've been refining this menu. It hasn't always been like that, so we're constantly refining it. But I think we found this sweet spot, and I think the best way to do that is to always listen to what the users are saying to you, and we're talking to the sales team, doing interviews, and that's how we can identify trends and patterns that we can leverage to make the user experience more
that's great, and
enjoyable.
it's fascinating. It's one of the best things I've heard so far in the podcast. Like I really like it, and I really like the structure and logic behind it. A follow-up question, I guess, to that, since we kind of like discussing keyword research now and how people search and what people search. How do you come up with like these, if we could call them, I don't know if we would call them search modifiers, but how do you come up with words like report, fake, protection, or like whatever people may be searching for that's connected to the product's capabilities?
So there's different ways. So first, I think one thing that is worth noting is that from an organic and SEO standpoint, we work very closely with our PPC team. So we are kind of on a weekly basis. We sit down with the PPC team, and we're constantly extracting data from PPC as well, understanding what keywords are working. And then we're kind of doing this exchange of information, which also allows us to identify a lot of new keywords. But in general, like I mentioned, the main way to identify those search modifier has been by leveraging qualitative data, and also by knowing, depending on the stage, depending on what level of the funnel a customer is, like top, middle, or bottom. So we've seen trends such as, how to, and in our case, when the main problems that someone who has a problem, the main problem that they would have is reporting is kind of like a basic term that our users would search, like how to report this there. Like in that case, the good thing with the industry is that the reporting fake, counterfeits, those search modifiers are something that we know from experience, and then what we are seeing, and that keeps coming up. And of course, there's also there's a lot of things that can be search modifier based on, like I said, the level on the funnel. So if they're on the bottom of the funnel, we would see things like modifiers like solutions, or like software, or like pricing. So we would use this as well to understand at what stage they are. But most of the time, Google Search Console as well gives us a lot of the information. We have over 400 pieces of content on our blog currently. And we do this work on a weekly basis of constantly looking at existing ranking content. And this provides you with so much information as well on what people are searching and what led them to a specific blog post. And what's quite interesting, in many cases, some of the keyword that we extract on Google Search Console, if you put them in SEMrush, they would have 0 search volume. But we know that actually once we optimize for this keyword, it does generate traffic. But not only does it generate traffic, but the conversion rate is outstanding. So leveraging data that we have from existing content works really well, working with PPC as well. And like I said, depending on the funnel stage, trying different variations. So the how-tos and the BOFU search modifier is also a way.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you couldn't like structure the answer in a better way. That's great. Now, to your point, you mentioned that you have like more than 400 posts on your blog. I think that it's more than 450. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some of which in other languages, of course. And my question here would be, with such a big content inventory, do you care about not only creating new content, but also making sure that what we have on our blog works and performs at its best at all times? I guess my question would be what you do in terms of content auditing, of your existing content inventory.
Yes. So when it comes to content auditing, this is something that's really important for us because a lot of the content that we create is responsible for generating qualified demand. So what I mean by that is demo, pricing, contact, and it's really important for us to not forget about those blog posts because, of course, there's always new competitors popping up. So what we do is we do kind of a weekly exercise of always making sure that our top performing pieces of content are always well optimized. So we do that by going in Google Search Console and making sure that the main keywords that they're supposed to rank for are still on position 1. So this is an exercise that we do, but also because we're churning out, we're creating so much content. So currently we're in a place where we create about 25 pieces of content a month. So a lot of content is spent in a lot of time is spent in creating content. So we make sure that also that content doesn't get forgotten. So we work with an SEO consultant as well, who's responsible for auditing that new content on a bi-weekly basis. So we usually give a content a chance to rank. Of course, we give the content at least a month to rank, but then after that, the content has been ranking for a month. So we have a note to constantly check and making sure that this content is still well positioned. So we would take this exercise, and so that would mean that every 2 weeks we are optimizing at least 10 new pieces of content. So we're creating at least 25 pieces of content and every week optimizing 10 pieces of content. So it's a very time consuming exercise, but it's also very important because we know that in some cases for we have a lot of competitors and they would always be going after similar keywords, which makes sense. And so it's important for us to not forget about those blog posts once we've created new ones.
That makes sense, and I would say that it's necessary. I mean, the numbers that you just shared, 25 and 10, let's say approximately there, that makes perfect sense. And I think that it helps you also maintain a balance because you can just publish content and have a very high publishing frequency, publishing velocity, and just forget about the content that you already have. One thing that really sparked my interest as I was doing the research for this episode is the reading time of your content pieces. Many of them are in the range of 4 minutes, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And by many standards, this would be considered as relatively low. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that what is mostly important is giving the answer to the question that the person, when they were conducting the search, had.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to hear your thoughts on content length and how does having let's say less words work for you.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to creating content, so we always do our due diligence. So, and I know maybe we might touch on that a bit later, but as part of the brief, whenever we work with freelancers or if we create content internally, one of the exercises that we do is to check, okay, what currently is ranking on the SERP for a specific keyword that we want to rank for. So we would always do the exercise, and should we see that the pieces of content that are ranking currently on the SERP are longer pieces of content, or we would try and match what Google is already ranking. So usually we take this approach. I would say that because there's a lot of pieces of content that we have, maybe how-tos that tends to be shorter, just because of the nature of the content, so the nature of what the topic is. But in general, I would say that our rule of thumb is to follow what the SERP tells us. So if we're seeing there's long pieces of content ranking, we would do. If it's listicle, we would tend to follow what is currently ranking. So yeah, I think it's out of those 450 pieces of content, I think there's a mix. I think there would be some for 4 minutes, but I think there would be a mix of longer and shorter pieces based on what we assessed made sense at the moment. And then again, in the exercise of whenever we're doing the optimization, if we're seeing that, okay, maybe this piece of content is not ranking well, so sometimes we would add some paragraph later down the line. We're like, okay, maybe it's because of the length, we need to create more. So we would sometimes be adding content on top to make sure that we're covering, or at least we are providing even more information to satisfy the search intent.
That makes sense. So I would like to shift gears a bit and discuss something that has to do with how you do content. It seems that there are several freelancers writing for your blog. Now, my question is, since the topics you're writing about aren't as easy for anyone to write about, how do you find these writers that have this specialized knowledge? And I would like to know if there are any tips or insights that you can share with us.
Yes, so it's a very complicated exercise because, as you mentioned, it's such a niche space where we operate. So legal tech is very niche. So there's different ways that we go about finding writers, and we've made mistakes in the past, and we're constantly learning and trying to refining the process. But I would say, so we now know that it's very important for any writer that we work with to have an IP background, just because of our buyer persona. We have by just looking at our products, a lot of our buyer persona is legal, has a legal background. So whoever we work with, we want to make sure that they're able to communicate well to a legal buyer persona. So it's important for them to have worked in the legal space. So we're very picky about that. And in terms of the selection process as well. So we would work on very detailed briefs and tests to try and understand kind of like how well they understand the topic. And I would say, looking at places where we go for copywriters, it just varies. So Upwork is one that comes to mind, although there's a lot of people there, so it can be tough sometimes to find the right one. But Upwork has been a place where we've been sourcing writers, and we've also been leveraging loads of groups. So you've got a lot of groups with copywriters, and ultimately kind of Google. So looking at, you have IP writers. So I would search for IP writers as well and kind of proactively reach out to them. But it takes a lot of time, and I think at the end of the day, like finding a writer might sound like the hardest part, but it's not necessarily. I think then it's about coaching and working with the writers. You need to invest. I mean, a writer becomes an extension of your team. That's the way we work with them. So once we've onboarded a writer, it's not because they know about IP laws that they know about what we do. So it's really important as well that we invest time in showing them our products, so we show them a lot of recordings, demos. We make them they join calls with us. Whenever we do interviews with customers, we tend to record them, send it to them. So there's a big part that we invest in coaching the writers, working with them, providing feedback. So I think it's a very long journey. So once you find a writer, it's about also retaining it, because you invest a lot of time and effort in bringing them up to speed. But it's definitely, by all means, a very lengthy but worthwhile process, because once you get your writers, you can tell a real difference in terms of the performance of your content.
Yeah, I agree. A question I have for you is regarding, I guess, your background as well. And I want to discuss a bit promotion and link building. Do you have a process in place after a piece of content has been published on your blog? Do you separate pieces of content based on their quote unquote ability to be amplified online? For example, this piece of content can be amplified on social media, while this, the distribution channel will be just a search engine, Google, for example. So is there a process around content promotion and link building? And whether or not you have a way of kind of separating a piece of content based on their relative ability of being amplified in different ways?
So yeah, so we definitely, when it comes to link building, we have like a process in place. So what we do is we usually invest time in link building for the content that is performing well in terms of generating us good quality leads. So when we know that the content has generating us generate those demo, those pricing, those contact, so we want to make sure that this content remains, top of page one, that is ranking on position one. So we would make sure on a weekly basis. So we have currently, what we're doing is about like we do 7 link building a month. So that's what we do at the minute. And then we select them based on existing content that's driving us good quality leads. That's 100% how we're doing it. But then when it comes to promotion, so a lot of the content that we have, again, as we said, we publish over 25 pieces of content a month. So the rest of the content that currently hasn't shown, maybe is not performing as well or is not ranking just well, but we're not forgetting about it. We're also making sure that we are using it across loads of different channels. So we would use this content across, we would promote it via nurturing, we would promote it via social media. So in social media, we have a whole process into place. So what we try and do is using social, so making sure that all the content that we put on our different social media platform, may that be Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, you know, and whatnot, so that the content is native to this platform. So we would have a strategy, kind of a repurposing strategy into place to turn a piece of content into an asset for Facebook, for social, for LinkedIn, etc. So we would do that. So we will always make sure to promote new pieces of content that we've created. So because right now social media falls under content, so our team also manages social media. So we would make sure that once a week we would promote one blog post. Then what we do, we also work very closely with the community team. And in that case, they're working with associations. So we would leverage associations, we would leverage their newsletters, for example. We would leverage, in some cases, so we would even, if we see that these are content that, let's say we're working in a fashion association and we created a blog post on fashion, you know, so what we would do, we would put a bit of money behind that content, and maybe to make sure that maybe we have a banner, or we somehow, the association can also put it on their social media. So we have a very good relationship with the association, so they would promote our content on social media. So that's also different channels. Then we also are part of different groups, you know, so in our case, anti-counterfeiting groups. So we would be publishing the content on groups as well, just to make sure that we give it a bit more visibility. And I would say that would be kind of like the main ways that we're making sure that the content doesn't just sit on the blog and we forget about it, and then we're just, you know, amplifying it across different channels.
I like the associations, you know, part. That's very smart. And I mean, I have seen clients of ours leveraging it in a very smart way, similar way, and I like it. I mean, many good things can come out of such like communities, let's say.
Yeah.
My second to last question would be, in 2021, you doubled SEO contribution to pipeline quarter over quarter.
Mm-hmm.
What advice can you give to people in a position that's similar to yours, who want to achieve similar results?
So I would say, I mean, in our case, and like I mentioned before, I think you really need to avoid making assumption and take a lot of time to dig deep into all the data that you can get from your customers, because what really allowed us to get to that point was we had a bit of a breakthrough again when we were getting through the data and starting to better understand how our users are searching for our products, which allowed us to come up with an entirely new project where we created a bunch of new use cases that, so in a nutshell, initially what we were doing is that the main ways, like the main bottom of the funnel pages that were driving us kind of those both leads, were our product pages, which were optimized for certain specific keywords. But we had like 6 or 7 product pages. But then by doing a lot of those research and getting loads of those qualitative research, we realized there's actually a lot more bofu keywords. There's actually different ways people are searching for our product. So why not create use cases based on those bofu terms that are handed to us, you know? And we had this whole new project of creating bottom of the funnel landing pages that, yes, for long tail keywords that drive less traffic, but the conversion rate was outstanding. And this came from just better understanding and not relying on our product pages, the one that we had for, you know, years, and by creating new pages that satisfied more the way people were searching for our content. So it's really important to kind of work really closely on, in our case, this also led us to launching a new initiative where we do on a monthly basis, which we call like a close won lost analysis, where we sit down with the product marketing team and we look at all the close lost accounts, won or lost, that we won. We go deep. We've created a report on Salesforce, and we are able to see the comments. Why did we lose? Why did we win? Why did they come to us? And we come out once a month. We sit down and we have some time where we can, reflect and understand what the main issues were and what our competitive advantages are. And usually from those meetings, new pages come up, new keywords come up, new ideas come up. So I think an understanding of your customers always would lead into projects and initiatives that would have a high impact. And in our case, from a very SEO focused mindset, is we totally kind of shifted gears. So when we doubled the quota that we doubled our contribution to pipeline. So it was kind of a long time coming from a new strategy that we had put into place. So we, like I said, now we're doing about 25 pieces of content a month. But before that, the year before, we were only doing 5, So we basically more than quadrupled the number of content. So we did a big shift. So we really invested time in polishing our clusters, focusing on creating coherent content on topics that we knew our buyer persona was interested in. And also we've invested a lot of time in not only scaling the content that we were creating, but like I said to you, also making sure that we found new ways of promoting it. And association has been gold for us, because the associations have paying members who are interested in this topic, who want to know more, and this has been also a really good source for us to be able to push out our content. So I would say, in a recap, has been to increase our content, our content output, and it's been to better understand our customers, every once a month, sitting down and looking, not even once a month, adding this into your kind of day-to-day job, understanding how your people search for your product, and kind of a combination of that and also alignment between marketing and sales has all contributed to the result that we got.
That's great. That's great. Thank you very much for breaking it down like this, Laetitia. That has all been very insightful, I must say. So thank you very much. Last question I have for you, call to action for our listeners. Where can people find out more about you, connect, and say hi if they'd like to?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is definitely the best place. So as you mentioned, so my name is Laetitia Woue, Woue, and you can find me on LinkedIn. You can drop me a message, and I'm always open to kind of sharing with my peers and learning from one another to become better content marketing and just professional in general.
That's great, Laetitia. Thank you very much for being on the
Thank you.
show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.